What's up, y'all? This is your girl Jay Renee with Prison Riot Radio. I hope that you're doing well. This evening, we have a brother on the phone that goes by the Infinite One. He is currently in Angola, and he's going to talk to us about the 10 and 2 rule that Louisiana has and, some other things that might come up. What's up, bro? How are you?
Hey, how y'all doing? My name is the Infinite One. I'm incarcerated in Louisiana State Penitentiary. I've been incarcerated for 16 years. I was originally charged with second-degree murder, and up on direct appeal, it was reduced to manslaughter, which was an erroneous ruling by the circuit court because it was actually justifiable homicide, which is another word for self-defense.
Yeah, you was telling me that, your case was self-defense. So let the listeners know exactly, what happened so they can understand why it was self-defense.
The reason why, here's the facts of my case. The facts was that on December the 2nd, 2004, I was asleep in my home with my ex-wife, which was 8 months pregnant at the time, and we had our 3-year-old son sleeping in his room. Mm-hmm. And she was laying up on the couch, and she had woke me up. Well, she came in the bedroom and woke me up and told me someone that was at the door. So I asked her, I say, who's at the door? She said, I don't know. Won't you go see? So when I went to the door and asked who it was, the individual said Reese, but I didn't actually catch the name or the tone of the voice, so I looked out the kitchen window and I couldn't see who was on the other side of the door. So I immediately went to the kitchen window. I meant to say the living room window, and looked out there. The only vehicle that was in the parking lot was ours. So I went back to the door and asked, who is it again? I caught the name, but I didn't recognize the tone of voice. But anyway, I partially cracked the door, and a guy that I had got into it with 30 days prior to the actual incident, he was on the other side of the door with a gun. And you can also tell that he was under the influence of drugs, too.
Okay.
And I'm trying to push the door to keep him on the other side, to stop him from forcing his way in. And he said he's trying to force his way to come in. Mm-hmm. So it had a knife that been there on the counter like maybe 2 hours prior to he arrived. And I picked it up, just to get him out my door so I can close it, and I stabbed him in the neck.
Mm-hmm. So, go ahead, continue, I'm sorry.
So from there, he bled out in the parking lot and he died.
Okay. So when you when he was at your door, was he like, how was he knocking? Did he make it seem urgent, like he was trying to come up in there? Like how was the whole scene?
Well, it was like a normal knock.
Okay. So when did you see that he had a firearm?
When I knew he had a firearm, when I partially cracked the door.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm sure that you was fearful for your life, especially with him being armed, and y'all had gotten into a dispute earlier, or about a month earlier.
Mm-hmm. And like I say, in the course of that, it was ongoing animosity.
Okay. All right. So when they initially picked you up, they told you, what did they tell you that your charge was?
Well, they charged me with second-degree murder.
Okay. And then once you got to court, it got dropped down during trial, or how did that go?
No, it had got broken down to manslaughter on direct appeal. See, at trial, they had convicted me of second-degree murder and sentenced me to a mandatory life sentence. I filed an appeal, which was to the Third Circuit Court. And after reviewing my case, they said, no, this is not a murder. So the judges in the Third Circuit, they enter a conviction of manslaughter. And like I was stated earlier, they erroneously denied me my justifiable homicide.
So what do you mean?
Hello?
Yeah, what do you mean by, so like that was never an option, or like for those of us that don't understand what that means?
Okay, it was an option. See, okay, like a judge had instructed the jury at trial. He said, if y'all don't find Mr. Johnson guilty of second-degree murder, you can find them guilty of a lesser included offense. And those lesser included offenses were manslaughter, negative homicide, or justifiable homicide, which is self-defense.
Yeah.
Justifiable homicide carries no penalty at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, like I was saying, whenever the circuit judges of the Court of Appeal reviewed my case, they found that my actions were manslaughter. They erroneously denied me my justifiable homicide. This is how they did it. Now, they said in their ruling, they said, okay, well, we noticed that Mr. Johnson didn't have a phone in his residence where he could have called 911, and he didn't have a back door where he could have escaped out of.
Okay.
And then they come right later on in their ruling and contradict themselves and saying, well, we find that Mr. Johnson's actions wasn't justified because he had an option not to answer his door, or he could have called 911. But you just said that I didn't have a phone in my residence, and they also recognized that I was tricked into opening my door.
So, wow, that's crazy. So
yes, it is.
So have you been able to appeal this, or like what was going on with your lawyer? Like why? What?
I'm listening.
Yeah, what? Like what? What was your lawyer doing or not doing that aided in this? Like what were you doing?
Well, my lawyer, he was a court pretender.
Okay.
I mean, he was working right along with the state. You know, I had a public defender.
Okay.
And he said in his opening statement, he said, you're going to hear testimonial from my client, Mr. Johnson, which is present right here in the courtroom. He's going to testify. However, when it came my time to testify, he told me that it would be in his best interest, well, be in my best interest, not for me to take the stand.
Wow.
So now, yeah, you're right, wow. But, however, he prepped the jury to hear testimonial from me. And when I failed to deliver, guess how I looked in front of him?
Right.
I looked at guilty. And you see, that's one of the biggest things in the state of Louisiana. That's what these public defenders do to us. In other words, they are insurance for the state to sustain a conviction.
Wow, that's crazy. You know, corruption happens all over the United States in the judicial system. I know that Louisiana, I was just talking to another gentleman, and I lived down Louisiana for 12 years, so I understand how that judicial system works and the corruption within it. So in this case, I know that the 10-2, did that apply to you, or
yes,
it did as well?
It does. I had a 10-2 verdict.
Okay, can you let the listeners know what that is?
Okay, what the 10-2 is, it's something that started out at a convention in 1898. A group of delicacy, they all came together after Reconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
And these men boldly said, you know why we are here today? We are here today to sustain white supremacists.
Wow.
In other words, like if two juries were black and they happened to be sitting on the jury, their vote wouldn't even count. Because the other 10, which is white, you know, they would have a guilty verdict.
Right.
All you need was 10 to convict. And like I say, you know, even though the United States Supreme Court has ruled in the Ramos case that it was unconstitutional for Louisiana with the Jim Crow verdict scheme, which is the 10-2, they declared it unconstitutional, but however, they only made it prospective, meaning that if you was on direct appeal at that time, you can reap the benefit. But if you was on collateral review, like myself, on post-conviction, you're not entitled to no relief. And so another case immediately followed that, which was Edwards versus Bernard. Now, this is what the United States Supreme Court said in that particular case. They said, well, it's not a federal issue, so we're going to leave it up to the state of Louisiana to make it retroactive.
Yeah, picture that.
Now, in other words, this is what the United States Supreme Court said, the highest law in the land. They said, Louisiana, y'all can keep the slaves that y'all already have, and ain't nothing wrong with y'all being racist.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely outrageous, brother. I believe you, though, and I know that it happens more often than people realize. So we definitely want to make sure that we get this information out there. So I want to ask you, well, before I ask you anything, is there anything else that you would like to say?
Well, if I could read a little bit into, and like, you know, bring everybody up to speed, you know, what's going on with this, if that's okay with you.
All right. Yes, brother, you can definitely go ahead and read what you got.
Okay, all right, thank you. When it comes to equal justice for blacks in the state of Louisiana, it's like being left wandering in the desert. You see what seems to be some relief by a lake in the distance, but it's actually an illusion caused throughout time. The agenda remains the same, and after the slaves were freed, 100 years and counting of Jim Crow followed. Of Falls Parish, Baton Rouge Parish, and Bossier Parish are well too known for overcharging impoverished blacks and poor whites. Former Louisiana Supreme Court Chief Justice Burnett Johnson urged lawmakers to address legally sanctioned racism in our criminal justice system and not reject retroactive relief out of the fear that we will produce a tsunami of litigation. In Orleans Parish, where more than 300 prisoners were convicted by split jury, District Attorney Jason Williams has begun the process of vacating all non-enmity jury convictions within his jurisdiction. Williams pledged to continue to correct the sins of the past to build trust in our city, while other district attorneys have insisted that they will maintain the status quo in light of Edwards' ruling under Dauphin. They can, like Jason Williams, revisit cases involving non-unanimous jury if they wanted to.
Wow. Okay, bro. So let me ask you, what do you hope that can come from, exposing the corruption that happened in your case and just in Louisiana in general?
Well, the only thing that everyone wants that is a 10-2 victim or has been overcharged or dealt some type of injustice. All we want is freedom.
That's simple, bro. I appreciate you taking this time to chat with me. I do want to ask you this too, though, before I let you go. 16 years for self-defense. It has to be a lot to swallow, and you've already done that time. How have you stayed motivated, and what makes you want to help others? Because what you're doing could definitely help others. So
Exactly.
What keeps you motivated despite that?
Well, the thing that keeps me going is, for number one, I chose to become conscious, by me having my knowledge sticks and like that, that what keeps me mentally stable, keeps me focused, keeps me, maintaining my composure, and and this is a term that I coined. Infinite love is the only truth. Everything else is just an illusion. With that being said, love is the greatest force in the universe. Mm-hmm. And also, love is not going to hesitate to do what's right. And with that being said, love also don't take no bullshit neither.
That's true.